Oh boy, this is big.
Well, life's crazy. It truly
So
is.
cool.
It's just a few weeks ago at the UFC Apex Center, we talked about this group and we talked about this person. And then I get a call a couple days ago like, hey, can you get Colin Hay on? Absolutely. Let's welcome to the show. Colin, how are you, sir?
I'm pretty good. Thank you very much. Oh, well, I'm actually slightly panicked at the moment because I'm about to leave. So it's always a slightly stressful day before you go out on a tour about what to take and what to leave behind.
Well, and I was going to ask, what's stressful about it? Is that all it is? It's just what you need to bring with you?
Yes, it's not really. It's on the low end of the spectrum of stress levels, but nonetheless, it's slightly angst causing. But I'll be fine.
You're coming to the Tampa Bay area next week. Are you bringing bathing suits and tank tops and flip flops?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Directed to the point.
I'm sure we'll all be bringing those. I don't know whether they'll get used because we have a limited amount of time. But when you go where the sun shines, which is what we're doing most of the time, I think that flip flops are important, as are some kind of bathing equipment.
So you're coming to town next week at Ruth Eckard Hall with John Waite, and then you're returning on the 16th as part of the Ringo Starr and the All-Star Band. So I'm kind of curious, and I was kind of joking with the bathing suits and such, but will you have the opportunity to get out to, whether it is go to the beach or I'm sure Matt's going to invite you to his restaurant, or will you have any time to get out?
Well, we sometimes do, but it depends on whether we have a day off or not. If we have a day off, then we do have time. And there's limited days off, So I think it's usually like 4 or 5 gigs on, and then one off. And during the day when it's a show day, even although you might have a few hours to spare, going to the beach is not something that I would tend to do on when you have a show that night, just simply because of the fact that it's all about those 2 hours at nighttime. Whereas if you have a day off, then you can relax a little bit more, So I'm not sure at this point whether we do have a day off or not. We might.
So Colin, I absolutely would invite you to my restaurant if you do have the time. It will be an honor to cook for you and your band, bring everyone in.
And we have a limo to pick you and the band and everybody up as well.
And on Saturday, I was cooking for a young lady, and she is my last name is McClellan. She told me that I was obviously Scottish, and she is part of the Cultural Society of Scottish. And so my question is, do you ever do the genealogy? Have you ever done the ancestry of your name and from where you came from in Scotland?
Well, I know where I came from because I was born there, and and I lived there for 14 years before I went to Australia. So I know pretty much only up until my grandparents. I don't really know beyond that, but I know pretty much where they were all from. They were from Glasgow, and before that, on my father's side, they came from Aberdeen, up on the northeast coast of Australia, of Scotland. But the Hay clan, if you like, there's about 3 or 4 different centres in Scotland where they were. Where there was a big population of my people. I come from the southwest coast of Scotland, and it's a beautiful part of the world, but it's very wet. It rains all the time, and which is why we decided to get on a big ship and go to Australia.
And then you're coming to the Tampa Bay area, which it rains here all the time. So you'll feel right at home. One of my co-hosts.
At least it's warm, though. At least it's warm. In Scotland, it's not warm. It's freezing.
No, that's definitely true. One of my co-hosts who lives in Las Vegas, he's a Las Vegas performer with the Tenors of Rock, is also from Glasgow. So your name came up when we were at the Apex, the UFC Apex, doing some interviews with some fighters, and one of the fighters was from Australia. And they brought up, and I know that you're probably sick and tired of talking about this, but they were talking about their love of the Vegemite Sandwich. And I looked at them like, what are you talking about? I know the song, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
How many millions of times have you had to, or not had to, but asked to explain what a Vegemite Sandwich is?
Well, I've been asked many times, and I would answer it quite freely. I still do, but then I'm more likely to say now, well, there is this thing called Google. You can just look it up. It's really not that difficult to find out what it is. It's really not that difficult to find out anything, really. It depends on I suppose, therein lies a wealth of information and a wealth of misinformation also on the internet. But it's really a byproduct of the beer industry. It's made from yeast extract, which is left over when they make beer. And so at some point, I suppose there was a conversation between a couple of guys, and they said, "Well, what do you reckon we could do with this yeast that's left over there, Bob?" "Oh, I reckon we order Michael a sandwich spread with it." And so that's what they did.
And just so you know, I did Google it.
It's highly nutritious. It's highly nutritious, and it's quite a savory spread. And the way to have it is I like it with multigrain toast, and you with a liberal slathering of butter, or if you're looking after your heart, some smart balance, and just a small amount of Vegemite will do the trick. It's not it's not to be used in a liberal fashion.
Interesting. So at some point we need to go down to Australia and try it out. Let me ask you this: I know
you don't even have to go to Australia. You can try that. You can actually buy it in America. You can get it here, no problem. You don't have to You don't have to travel 10,000 miles to sample Vegemite. But you can if you like, because I would highly recommend taking a trip to Australia, but not just for the Vegemite.
I would like to go to Australia, but I did not know that you could get it here, and I will. I will try it. Yeah. Colin, let me ask you this. I know picking your favorite song or your favorite song to perform is like picking your favorite child. So I'm going to ask you, what's your favorite song to perform?
My favorite song to perform, well, usually what my favorite song to perform is the latest song that I came up with. But that's on a personal level, because you always like to perform the last thing you came up with, because it's the most exciting, because it's fresh and new, and you just came up with it. But of all the older songs, if you like, that from the olden times, I think that probably "Overkill" is still a song that seems to be. I don't know. It's always very rewarding to play it. They all are, actually. All the songs that from the old band still really work really well. There's a song called "Waiting for My Real Life to Begin" that I wrote that 20 years or 30 years old, I suppose now, the song, but people respond to that really well as well. But let's say "Overkill." That'll be a simple answer.
And Colin, I'm on the Google machine as well, and I see there's a friendship, a connection with actor-director Zach Braff, and I know his family lives in St. Pete. I've cooked for him before, and so if he's in town while you're in town, it would be great to see him again. And
you're doing everything you can to get
and an honor to
over there.
An honor to cook for you as well.
Now listen. Let me ask you this:
Yes,
kind of things? What are your favorite things to cook?
So I invented the pizza diet, and I became a professional bodybuilder eating nothing but pizza. So pizza is my forte.
Wow.
I learned how to cook in Brooklyn. It's authentic, it's healthy, and I'm the best at what I do.
That sounds very exciting.
Right. And I'll be honored to cook for you, my friend.
We're a band of pizza lovers, of course.
Let me ask you this. Are you a fan of other sports? This is mainly a sports network, but obviously we love talking entertainment. And are you a fan of sports, of other sports?
I like sports. I like watching sports. I love it. I love all kinds of sports. I sometimes wish that I could get fanatical about particular teams, but I don't. I played soccer growing up. That was my game in Scotland before I went to Australia. Then I grew to love Australian rules football, although I never really played it, but I enjoyed that as well. I enjoy track and field, and I loved boxing. I loved Muhammad Ali. I loved from Australia. I loved Jeff Fennick. I loved all kinds of that area. Although it's pretty brutal, but I do admit that I had a great love of Muhammad Ali growing up. And my favorite sporting moment really was probably Kathy Freeman when she won the 400 meters in the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. That was, I think, my favorite sporting moment ever. I was weeping. It was such a beautifully run race. It was perfect, and I thought it just really doesn't get any better than that.
Fan of golf? Coming from where you come from?
I like golf, but I don't play it. I imagine it's a very rewarding and extremely frustrating game at the same time. But yeah, I like golf, but I've never taken it up. Perhaps it's something that I should do, but I haven't as yet.
Well, I don't know how you would have time, between, Men at Work, the Ringo Starr All-Star Band, your solo career. I know just recently, a couple months ago, another new album came out. How do you have time to go do any of those things?
Well, that's right, which is why I haven't.
Okay. What is the funniest, craziest, strangest thing that's ever happened while you were on stage?
I think it was Phoenix, Arizona. I think it might have when we first came. There was some idiot who had decided that he thought it would be a good idea to have this kangaroo join us on stage. He was training wallabies, which is a smaller kangaroo. He kind of made this animal hop onto the stage, and I turned around and I saw this wallaby, this kangaroo standing there, and he just looked terrified, and he looked like, what am I doing here, And I just thought, okay, please take this poor animal off the stage and stop traumatizing it.
How do you sneak a kangaroo into a concert?
Oh, I don't think he sneaked in. I think he was wearing a tuxedo.
The kangaroo or the guy?
Yeah, no, the kangaroo. Yeah, I think he was wearing a tuxedo.
Crazy. I know. I just mentioned.
I just thought he was a very strange-looking gentleman.
Oh my God! Talk about the solo album. That just came out a couple months ago. Now in the Evermore.
Well, you do these records. It's very, very hard to get records noticed these days. But it's my favorite thing that I've ever done. Of course, I always say that about every record that I do. But you try and get better at what you do. It's like when you say you're a sporting network, a sporting radio station. I mean, that's what people who are involved in sports try to do. It's all about the nuance. It's all about that little detail that makes a big difference. Whether you're pole vaulting or a high jump, it's not about big increments. It's about centimeters or millimeters even. So with songs, I think it's the same thing. You're always just trying to say more with less, and you're trying to get more essential and get better at what you do. And I'm in a profession where, in a lot of ways, it doesn't really matter how old you get. You can still do that, because it's not about so much about physical prowess. It's more about just continuing to hone it, and try and get, just as I say, just trying to get better. So anyway, the record is I tried to instill as much beauty as I could to the record. It was a pandemic record, really. It was a record that I wrote just before the pandemic hit, so I guess it was somewhat influenced by those tragic events, and which is indeed continuing to this day. But so it was. I don't know. All I can say is that if you're interested in what I do, I think that if you have a listen to the record, you won't be disappointed. And the first thing you'll hear, of course, on the record is an iconic fill by the great Ringo Starr, which is it's worth it just for that.
I listened last night, and I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to get off the show in a couple hours and get back home and sit in a chair and listen some more. What can the fans expect, when they come out to Ruth Eckard Hall next week when you and Men at Work and John Waite are on stage?
Well, what do you think? What do you think that fans should expect? Who knows? Who knows what people expect? I wouldn't. People expect all kinds of things, and people are weird. But I think that people can expect to be entertained. They can expect to hear. It's like if you go to a party. Like you want to see some people, you want to see some old friends that you haven't seen for a while. But then sometimes you want to strike up a conversation with a stranger, someone you haven't met. So there'll probably be some things that people haven't heard. But all the if you've come to hear particular songs, I doubt that you won't go home disappointed.
Do you expect to see a Kangaroo wearing a tuxedo?
No, I don't think. I think that was a once only. Hopefully, yeah. Mainly because it was, look, people do all kinds of, terrible things with traumatized animals. I remember it, because it wasn't. Mainly because of the fact that the look on the wallaby's face, the kangaroo's face, was it's imprinted in my memory. He was very frightened, very scared.
Colin, I want to thank you for your time. This has been awesome. I've been on the air for almost 40 years, and this is one of my favorite conversations I've ever had.
No question.
I can't wait for you to come to town. I will be at Ruth Eckard Hall next week. Looking forward to watching you on stage. All
right, thanks. Take care of yourselves, and see you next week.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Colin Hay from Men at Work. Good stuff. I cannot wait. That'll be next week. Let's go hit a real quick break. When we come back, Dontel Mays gets in the Octagon on Saturday. We'll be right back.